Once you become aware of El Nino and La Nina, it's actually very surprising just how much of an effect these phenomena have on the weather that we experience on the mainlands of different continents. If you don't know about them, these are basically cyclical weather patterns that happen in the Pacific Ocean, where a large part of the ocean becomes either a little hot or a little cool. But those differences create entirely different climate and weather regimes for almost everybody on the planet. El Nino is when the water becomes slightly warmer, and that makes the continents around the ocean experience slightly warmer weather as well. Now, what happens when a normal El Nino becomes a super El Nino, kicking up the average temperatures over 2 degrees centigrade? A real threat of famine. I came across this article from the 19th of May, which talks about how a super El Nino could trigger global famine. Now, super El Ninos are rare and they generate exceptionally intense warming of water at the surface of the Pacific, with temperatures rising more than 2 degrees centigrade above the historical averages. This sharply disrupts global weather, increasing the risk of extreme heat, droughts, and flooding. A typical El Nino will alter rainfall, of course. It shifts jet streams, which I'm sure not every one of you knew. And of course, it will also raise the global temperatures while it's in effect. A study by the UN's FAO and the World Meteorological Organization shows that rising heat could make farm work unsafe for much of the year across South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and parts of the Americas. In that order, the largest populations and also the most productive fields on the planet. Crop yields have dropped sharply above 30 degrees centigrade, while heat stress reduces livestock productivity and survival. And that's very much true. Once your farms get too hot, plants don't produce as much. We also find that livestock becomes less active, it eats less, it grows less. Heat stress is a very big concern, and in most parts of the world you'll find that during the summer you don't grow much. It's mostly spring, fall, monsoons, and the winter where possible. The only exceptions are places that are way too cold during the winter, so their summers are variably cooler, and that's the time they find the most productivity. But the bread baskets of the world, they do not exist in those environments. They exist where summers can become the unproductive part of the year. Now, Super El Nino on its own will not do anything that'll just, destroy food supplies all over the world, but it might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. There are already enough issues happening around the planet that will disrupt food chain supplies on their own, but we are still managing. Systems are fragile, they are less resilient, they are more prone to falling apart, but they haven't fallen apart. And that's why a super El Nino, which really raises the extremes of the extreme temperatures and weather patterns, will put on a strain that these systems may not be able to take anymore. One big issue is wars. Wars disrupt trade, inequality limits access to food. Both are intensified by a profit driven food system that prioritizes feeding animals for slaughter over feeding people. Millions of people are vulnerable even in normal times, and catastrophically so when the shocks arrive. This is the reality of our food systems, where it's often more economical to just grow food for livestock, and then the government subsidizes the livestock that is sold to the consumer. Vegetarian societies are far and few in between, and so they might be a bit of an exception, but still, taking care of animals turns out to be far more productive. And that means your fields are designed and cultivated to grow food for animals. They're not growing cauliflower or wheat, they're growing alfalfa and grains and straw that they will feed to the pigs and the cows and the goats. Not food that you can feed people if you even wanted to all of a sudden. Modern agriculture depends heavily on fossil fuel based fertilizers transported over long distances. If fertilizer fails to arrive in time for key planting windows, yields decline months later. In wealthy countries, this translates into higher prices. In poorer ones, it translates into hunger. Now, what's the solution to all this, huh? The answer isn't easy. Food is ingrained in society, culture, history, psychology. People will, buy 2 extra electric cars before they'll shift their diets. It just means so much to people. So when they can afford food, they will. They'll buy and eat what they'll like. And that like can have meaning in culture, tradition, like it does for a lot of indigenous and tribal people. It can also hold meaning in psychology, what you ate as a child. It also has impacts from advertising, from the animal husbandry lobby, like Sunday ho ya Monday, Rose Kawande, right? That is a slogan that so many people remember. Eat an egg every day. But what if I told you to stop? It has been a part of your life so far. It means so much more than just an egg. So, to suggest that the change can happen easily, I doubt it. And I agree with the article that it's going to take something like a super El Nino to really tip us over the edge. When the food systems really collapse, and sadly a lot of people will suffer, only then will we take the initiative to change them. But I hope there is a different outcome. And I think we can, at least at this point, when the food systems haven't completely collapsed, they're mostly just stressed and strained and fragile, we should be able to come up with some solutions and build some resilience in advance so that the pain actually suffered is less. Because agriculture is one system where you can't pivot like this. All right, there's a growing season which, once initiated, has to see itself through, and the seasons change in their own time. Supply chains, once made, need time to be redone or, given a new form. So, I am genuinely curious what kind of solutions we could come up with. If you have an idea, if there's something you've read about that could potentially be a solution to make our food systems more resilient, let me know in the comments. I'd love to read that. But until then, this is just some food for thought, and I'll see you next time.